Mike Pachelli here. Thanks for tuning in. I'll be talking about the Beatles recording of Two of Us that they did on January 31st, 1969. The song was written in late September of '68 entirely by Paul McCartney, and it has a lot of odd measures, perhaps the most time signature changes in any Beatles song. The song is reportedly written about Paul and his new girlfriend, Linda Eastman, but one could infer that some of the lines seem to be about Paul's relationship with John. Nevertheless, Paul has said, "When we first met, it would be late at night after a session or something, and I would be trying to unwind, and so we would go for a drive around London in the late night clear street. She'd say, 'Try to get lost,' and I'd say, 'That goes against every fiber in my body.' She said, 'Try it,' and I'd try it. 'For you, I'll try it.' We used to end up in the greatest of places that I'd never been to before. We never did get lost, so that kind of freedom was part of our thing." Sometimes they'd drive Paul's Aston Martin into the country and find a secluded spot to park. Paul adds, "One day we went out into the countryside and found a little wood that looked as if it might be a good place for a walk. I parked the car. There's a photograph of me in the Aston Martin, sitting with the driver's door open and my feet out. I've got my guitar. That's me writing Two of Us." They worked on the song at Twickenham Studios on January 2nd, 3rd, 6th, 8th, 9th, and 10th as a full-blown rocker with the usual lineup. But on January 10th, during the lunch break, George Harrison quit the band, saying, "See you around the clubs." And George is on record saying, "It became stifling, so that although this new album was supposed to break away from that type of recording, we were going back to playing live, it was still very much that kind of situation where he already had in mind what he wanted. Paul wanted nobody to play on the songs until he decided how it should go. For me, it was like, what am I doing here? This is painful." But on January 21st, George Harrison returns to the band, and they move the rehearsals to the Apple Studios in the basement of Savile Row. They begin proper recording of Two of Us acoustically on January 24th, with John and Paul on acoustic guitar, and now George Harrison playing a simulated bass line on his Fender Telecaster guitar. The Beatles recorded more proper versions of the song on the 25th, 26th, 28th, and 29th, but it was the January 31st recording session where they taped the version that appears on the Let It Be album. And fun facts to know and tell, that's John Lennon whistling the coda to Hello Goodbye on the end of Two of Us. The song was mixed by Phil Spector on March 25th, 1970, and that's where he stuck in the "I dig a pygmy" line at the intro of the song. And that line was edited onto the session from a recording they did on the 21st. Two of Us was released on the Let It Be album on May 18th, 1970. So that's the backstory. Let's get started. Paul McCartney is playing his Martin D28 on Two of Us. This is a Taylor 814C that I've had since the middle 90s. So he begins with the iconic riff, and it's basically the fifth and third of a G triad, thinking of this G triad up here. So he gets the 7th fret of the 3rd string and the 7th fret of the 1st string and bounces between it. And then he picks up and here an open E. Now I know on live recordings now Paul plays that E on the 5th fret of the B string. He goes. But that's not what he did on the record. Listen closely and you could clearly hear he's picking it up and going. That's as far as he goes at the beginning. And then he gets into a first position G chord, this chord. Now, the first 3 measures could be confusing. The first 2 measures are in 4, and the 3rd measure is a measure of 2/4. You could also think of it as one measure of 4/4 and one measure of 6/4, but I find it easier to stick those 2/4 measures in. So you count 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, all on a G chord. And what's notable about Paul's playing on this song is that his up and down strokes are very even. It's almost sounding like they're all downstrokes. Almost sounds like, but it's just that his up and down is very, very even. So you want to get Paul's part very even on the G chord. So you play like, that's 1, 2, actually 1, 2, and so. Now, Here's where Paul's genius shines through with chord variations. He plays a first position C chord. He picks up that first finger to actually make a C major seventh. And then he puts his first finger on the second fret, of the third string to get an A. And I'm calling that chord A minor ninth, because it'd be the third, fifth, root, and ninth of A minor. And the bass part, for the most part, is... All right? And John Lennon plays more traditional chords, but the combination of Paul's voicings and John's more traditional voicings, which I'll show you momentarily, adds to the fullness of the song. And, it's something the Beatles do on a regular basis. So on that third measure, you play just all down and up strokes. Then on that A minor ninth that I'm calling, you play... So 1 and a 2 and 3 and 4 and. Back to 2 measures of G and 4/4. A measure of 2/4. Same figure with the C. All right? So let me do that far in time. Now they go into 3/4 time, and there's some anticipation. So on the G chord, you play 1, 2, and in 3/4 time. So 1 and 2 and. Then a D chord, and there's going to be some open strings off of the D to the C. This is in 3/4 so it's. Repeat that. So in time, that little 3/4 section would be 2, 3, 4. Very inventive and very cool. And the second verse is pretty much exactly the same. It stops, he plays the intro lick again, and then a verse. So I'll just play the second verse for you so you can hear it in time. So on the bridge, there's a couple new chords you'll need. You got a B flat, a D minor, G minor seventh, A minor again, and a D. And a few little extra figures, but it sounds like this. 3, 4. And verse 3. That's basically all the parts. There are some variances. I've written every measure out. There's 6 pages if you like to download at MikePachelli.com. You could see exactly what Paul played. But for the most part, that's what you need to play Two of Us like Paul McCartney. John Lennon is also playing acoustic guitar on Two of Us, either another Martin D28 or a Gibson Jumbo. This is a Keras SJ number 50. Now, of note is John's rhythm style here is more of an accent on the upbeats. So unlike Paul, who's very even, John, like on the G chord, is more accenting all the upbeats. So if he plays a G chord, it's more like... That's overemphasized, but you understand what I'm saying. So he starts on the second measure while Paul's doing the... And he plays a little lead-in of the D, E, F sharp. And then he strums 2 measures of the G chord. And then the verse begins. So we have, again, 2 measures of 4/4 and a measure of 2/4 on that G chord. Now, on this part, John plays a traditional C with the G on top. Wow. Then a C over B to an A minor 7th. And he does it like this. Straight strumming on the first 2 chords. And he kind of mimics Paul's rhythm there. Then back to G. That's a measure of 2. Now this time he plays the C. And when he gets to the C over B chord, he kind of lifts up his first finger, almost implying a C over B to E minor to C over B to E minor, kind of mimicking Paul's A minor 9. And the sound that you're looking for is like this. Here's on the C over B. See that? To the A minor. Kind of mimicking Paul's rhythm. So again, on the C. Now in the 3/4 measure, where Paul does anticipations, Paul goes. John strums straight through it, from the G to the D to the C. But he does play open strings before he hits the C chord on the second measure of 3/4. So slowly, John plays. Got that? I guess I'll play a verse for you in time. You hear that? Second verse is very similar, and he doesn't do the over the C over the B, pick up his finger. He stays on just. I'll just do you the second verse. Second verse would be like this: 3, again the intro, and then he picks up, plays. Second verse starts. And on the bridge, John plays his B flat here and his D minor first position. Same figure as Paul, so it's to the D minor. Now right here, John makes a mistake. Instead of playing a G minor or a G minor 7th, his first beat is a G major he plays. And he realizes it and goes, oops, to the G minor. So it's like, I didn't do that very good. Let me do it again. Open strings, A minor. To the third verse. So again, bridge, closer in time, would be 3, 4. Like that. Again, I'm not going to go through the whole thing. I charts and tabs at MikePachelli.com. I've written out every nuance of John's part because he does a little more of that, you know, the later on. So if you'd like to download it, you can download it there and see all 6 pages. But that's primarily what John did on Two of Us. George Harrison is playing his Rosewood Fender Telecaster on Two of Us, probably just plugged into a twin reverb. I've got this 62 going through a 1967 Fender Deluxe reverb. For the most part, he's doing like a kind of a Motown line on the guitar, in that if it's a G chord, he'll play a low G and then an octave. And then a line where you go from the 6th of the chord to the root, and then the 3rd of the chord to the 5th. So. And sometimes he variates, starting on the low part of that and then to the high part like this. Got that? But when the song begins, he hesitates for the first measure, and he starts on the and of 1. The only time he does that is at the very beginning. So there's 2 measures of Paul doing his little thing, and then George starts on 1. Understand? But then on the very first measure of the verse, he already changes the pattern, and he plays. And then he changes a little bit on the second measure also, where he plays some extra 8th note. He goes. And then, so that little intro would be 3, 4, 1. And then you're to the measure of C to C over B to A minor. Now on that, one of his main lines sounds like this. It's all on the 6th string too. He plays, he goes. Very slowly. And then he's back to the Motown kind of vibe. And now he's at that C to C over B to A minor, and he plays the same line. Now here comes the 3/4 measure. On the 3/4 measure, he plays this. He goes. And then we're to the second, what we'll call second intro of Paul. That part. Now there's some variances in verse 2. On the 3rd and 4th measure of the second intro, he plays a normal. And then the verse starts, and he reverses by going. The measure of 2. Now the chords come C, C over B, A, but he makes a mistake. He plays the D note in the very first, probably on the 6th string. Probably goes, and then he realizes he's too high, and he goes back to the normal figure. So I like to play it on the 5th fret up here actually. So, but it would sound like this: 3, 4. And then he plays a really interesting figure on this G. He plays. It's the only time he does that. Then back to normal. The measure of 2. And then there's another little line that he uses on the C over B to A minor. And it sounds like this. It goes, So very slowly that line is. into the 3/4 part again. Very cool parts. And then on the bridge, a B flat, he starts on the and of 2. It's 1, 2. Next chord is D minor. He starts on beat 2, 1. Then the G minor, he starts on the end of 1, 1. Same line on an A minor, 1. Then the second part of the A minor, he goes up a little higher, 1. And he's into verse 3. And on and on and on. I'm not going to bore you with every single measure. If you'd like to know exactly what George plays, again, I wrote out the charts and tabs for all 6 pages of George's part, and you can download that at MikePachelli.com. And when you download the chart to 2 of us, you'll be getting 18 pages of chart. But I have put it all together in a sound alike so you can see how the parts fit together, so have a look at this.
Riding nowhere, spending someone's hard-earned pay. You and me Sunday driving, not arriving on our way back home. We're on our way home. We're on our way home. We're going home. Sending postcards, writing letters on my wall. You and me burning matches, lifting latches on our way back home. We're on our way home. We're on our way home. We're going home. Wearing raincoats, standing solo in the sun. You and me chasing paper, getting nowhere on our way back home. We're on our way home. We're on our way home. We're going home. Going home. You better believe it. Goodbye.
Well, I hope you enjoyed seeing how all those parts fit together. I suggest you download the 18 pages of charts and tabs, learn all the parts, play along with my sound alike, and you'll get it just like the Beatles. And if you'd like to drop me a line, that's also where you can do it at MikePachelli.com. And I appreciate your consideration in downloading some of those charts and tabs to help support my work. So have fun playing this great old song, and until next time, I'm Mike Pachelli. Thanks for hanging out with me.